Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Big Bros podcast. My name is Jeremy. Welcome if it's your first time joining us. And I'm joined by my lovely friend and co-host, Ilan. How are you, mate?
Mate, never felt better. How are you?
I'm good. I'm lovely. I've just had some cottage cheese on toast. You've had some avo on toast. It's a nice little kickstart to our morning. And we're keen to get involved, aren't we?
No, very, very down. Very keen for this episode. So, Jeremy, start us off. What are we talking about today?
So as you guys can see from the title, we're talking about purpose, finding yourself. Is it overrated? What do we think about it? And this is often a theme that we come across. I would say I started to think about in year 12, around about year 12, going into uni. And when I was on my gap year, you often start to hear the term finding yourself, talking about your inner passions, your inner purpose, what it is you want to do with your life, what do you want to get out of life, who you want to mix with, all this razzle dazzle. Now, the way I've always interpreted it is like being connected to finding yourself in a way that like you think your most authentic self is, as if you've got like an inner purpose, an inner passion. And that has always put pressure on me. I've always felt the pressure of that. And I know others feel the pressure of that. And I think you see that when people often say, I'm going to take some time off from work to go and find myself. I'm going to go and travel overseas to go and find myself. And I think that puts added pressure on the person in that situation. And it might not always be the case that you will go away and just find yourself. What do you reckon?
Well, it's all about finding kind of your likes, your dislikes, your values, and who you believe what your personality encompasses. I think traveling is a good vehicle for that, because I think the reason people say they want to travel to go and find themselves, the reason it's like a trendy thing to do is because, number one, traveling, oftentimes you're going to be in uncomfortable experiences. Number two, you might find like-minded people, or you might find people that you don't get along with. But either or, you get an understanding of which people you like to surround yourself with. Number three, you'll get, as I said before, just a greater awareness of what your likes and dislikes are. How do you kind of deal with that uncomfortable feeling of being in a foreign country or doing something that is kind of away from your home? I think that's like one of those trendy vehicles of exploration. It's like sitting under a lotus tree in India, meditating and being like, who am I? Who am I? You know? So I think, yeah, it's always been like a trendy term. I think the term itself, and we can get into it, is a little bit like overrated.
Yeah.
And we can get into it why, but I first want to like touch on why you think it's such a trendy thing. You know, you're an 18-year-old, you're in school, and you want to take a gap year the year after because you've decided you want to go and find yourself.
Well, I think it all starts with, when you have your first meetings with the career advisor in year 12 and, you just expected to know what it is you're meant to be doing for the rest of your life as a bloody 17, 18-year-old. Like, how are you meant to know? So I think those are the first moments, like I said, where you start to think, okay, what am I going to do? Where am I going to find myself? How am I going to find myself?
Well, sorry to interrupt. Remember the Moresby report?
I remember, yeah.
What did you get on that?
A crock of crap, isn't it?
Maybe, but tell me, what did you get? Do you remember what it suggested for you? Because that's going to be your best way of finding yourself.
I could not tell you. What was yours?
I got like shit like journalist, customs manager, like customs at the airport.
Oh my goodness.
I was really offended by mine, if I'm honest. Some people got like a doctor, lawyer, and here I was being like a journalist or, someone at customs. Again, no disrespect.
No disrespect, but I guess that's
more so.
It's probably a more structured way of like the school trying to help you discover what it is you might want to be when you're older. But yeah, back to why it is trendy. I think just because of our environment that we are around. Like if you are in like a developed country, you might have the privilege of being in an environment where the world is your oyster and there are a lot of things at your disposal. You might be surrounded by a lot of successful people, maybe family members that have gone on to do great things. You might have like access to great like athletic environments as well. So technically the world is your oyster and you are therefore more inclined to feel the need to utilize those resources and be something great and do something great, which adds that pressure. But it might come with a bit of luxury as well. What do you reckon?
Oh, for sure. Look, you look at like a lot of developing countries where, and I want to use the whole Maslow's hierarchy of needs to kind of highlight this example. If you're living in a developed country where all of your basic physiological and social needs are met, the highest kind of tier is self-actualization, and finding yourself or personal development ties right into that. And I think that's like a very Western developed country. It's a luxury to have. I think it's a good problem to have, because someone who is having to walk 10 kilometers for fresh water isn't thinking about, oh, who is my, what is my truest self? They're thinking about what I need to do in this very moment to survive. And I think as humans, we're always going to try and create challenges for ourselves. It's the whole thing about gold medal syndrome. It's why people get depressed after they've won a gold medal, is because they need something else to fight for and something else to achieve and work towards. And so I think that for us, being in such a developed country, being in an environment where you have access to clean water, education, healthcare, you're surrounded by family and friends, hopefully, your next thing to work towards is asking yourself, well, what do I actually want to devote my professional career or my hobbies doing? And I think oftentimes that's sort of the question of, what is my purpose, and what is my, what does finding myself truly look like come into play?
Yeah. Love it.
Sorry, a bit of a rant there.
No, I love that.
You love it?
Yeah, I love that. And I was just thinking along those lines, but what if you don't know what those true hobbies are, which you have? What if you don't know how to find yourself? That is where I have a problem with the whole finding yourself thing, and why I think it is a bit overrated, because I think it encourages us to always look inside, be that introspective person. And look, don't get me wrong, I love being introspective, as do you. But when it comes to self-introspection, like you said before, you're in India under a lotus tree, meditating, thinking, what it is to be myself. What is really in me? I think that added pressure is a little bit mythical as well. I think, like, rather than finding yourself, I think we should change the narrative and think that we need to go out and find. Rather, we're influenced by our environment. We're a makeup of what happens around us, rather than looking into us as a person inside and thinking we are the ones that influence what's outside. What do you think?
Yeah, I've got more of a different take on it. My whole thing about why I don't like it is it's the whole idea of, like, it's related to self-acceptance, but like, whilst I believe it's important to know who you are and what you stand for, I feel like constantly, just as you said, just asking yourself and being introspective and ruminating isn't going to be solved by just merely thinking about it. I also don't like the idea of, like, finding yourself, because it also implies that up until you've reached that moment of enlightenment where you know who you are, were you not truly you? You know what I mean? Like, you have an excellent analogy that you're going to refer to next, but it's without kind of giving it away. It's every time you self-improve, you're still the same person. You may have just enhanced your values, your discipline, whatever the case may be, but you're still the same person. So I've never liked that idea of, like, finding yourself. You're reaching that stage of enlightenment. Does that mean that the person you were before doesn't exist? Like, what the fuck, man?
And even, yeah, exactly. And even more so, if we start to talk about change, and then, like, changing as a person, that often comes with, like, a negative connotation sometimes as well. Like, oh, he's changed. They've changed. Like, they're a different person now. Nah, like, that's not the case. People just level up. People just alter what it is that they like, what it is they dislike, who it is that they want to spend time around with more so than what they might have wanted to in the past. There's nothing wrong about changing. There's nothing wrong about leveling up or leveling down in some circumstances. And coming back to that finding yourself notion, I think we need to think about ourselves as a bit of cake batter, you know?
Love it.
We're not the cake yet. Like, especially as an 18-year-old deciding what it is you might want to do when you're older, or still not knowing what the fuck it is you want to do when you're older. It's because we're just cake batter, mate. Like, and I think that whole cake batter notion.
What cake batter? What flavor?
I reckon we start off pretty vanilla-y, like a vanilla cake batter, because let's be honest, like when we step out of school, we're pretty raw, we're pretty plain. I don't really think we've got the chocolate chips yet. We definitely don't have like the caramel swirls. Like,
I'll be honest, you're still speaking about humans. I'm thinking about cake now. I'm hungry. So I got lost.
but let me just tie back in the analogy is that like, because we're so young, we're so raw still, we need to stop thinking about what the finished product is being the cake. We need to stop making that our mindset and rather just enjoy being the batter, enjoy being a young adult, enjoy going out into the world and experiencing different people, different things, putting your mind towards whatever it is that you want to put your mind towards, whether it be a physical pursuit, whether it be an academic pursuit, whatever it might be. Enjoy just being raw and being influenced by your environment. And that is how I think we should think about this narrative. Rather than finding yourself, go out and find and let the environment around you then influence you. Because naturally when you do that, that's when you'll come back and think, all right, what is it that I actually enjoyed doing? Did I enjoy these people? Did I enjoy doing these types of hobbies? Is this my passion maybe? What is it that you felt like you were your happiest around? And that is how I think you technically find yourself.
You know what's interesting in what you just said there is the whole idea of the only constant in life is change. Now, the issue I've got, additionally to the whole idea of finding yourself, is that once you find yourself, you're not going to change after that. You're not going to evolve into a person with more acquired tastes, interests, different values. So I think, I feel like, and look, maybe I've just misinterpreted the whole term, but to say that you're finding yourself is suggesting that you don't have to find yourself more, you don't have to evolve. I think as humans, regardless, we're always going to be evolving. We're going to be evolving our interests, we're going to be evolving our values. So I like that whole idea of, embracing the uncertainty, embracing the fact that you have a zero life experience. Because going back to that example of an 18-year-old at the career counselor's office, them telling them, well, what do you like doing? And they say, I don't know, like I'm okay at maths. I can write somewhat better than I can do maths. Like, I'm not sure what I should do. Like, I haven't really seen enough of the world. Well, who can blame you? You've just said it yourself. You haven't seen enough of the world. You haven't tried out different things. That doesn't mean you have to necessarily go travel. You don't have to necessarily go sit under a lotus tree in India, although it might sound quite peaceful and nice, and I'd love to experience that. It's not going to be a simple fix.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as just saying, I'm going to travel and find myself. It's going to take years. People in their 30s and 40s don't find themselves. I think people who are a bit older might scoff at us and say, what do you mean finding yourself? You find a job that you like, that you can tolerate, that you can do something good at, so that you can tolerate it more than you can tolerate other jobs, that you slightly enjoy more than other jobs, and have a family, provide for them. Fucking fuck off with your go finding yourself, Stop being selfish. I think a lot of people would scoff at that. And that's also like an interesting debate to have, I think, as well.
Exactly. And if you don't like that job and if you don't like that career that you've chosen or that university degree, pick another one or don't pick one at all.
That's what I did.
Go do something else, And look, I understand like as a career counselor or a uni counselor, whatever it might be, I understand that their job is to help people in deciding what it is they may want to do. But I think there needs to be a little bit of a change as well in saying like, but you know what? You can pick this, mate. And you might hate it for the first 6 months. And you don't need to be that person that goes and carries on with it and thinks, oh, I'm just going to get the year done and maybe go into next year or just finish the course and then see. Like, there's an element of being patient, but I think there's also an element of like, when and if something is not tickling your fancy and if it's just not for you. So if I give an example, like I remember I was at the gym actually ages ago, and there was this kid there who was in uni and we were having a chat, and he was saying to me how like I think he was like doing commerce or something at uni. But he was like, oh, like I'm, 8 months in and I just hate it. And another person in the conversation was saying, oh, just keep going and see how you go. Like maybe give it another year and see how you go. But my opinion was like, mate, like if you've gone like 8 months and you are despising it and you're hating it, drop out and pick something else that you might want to do, or pick something that you might not know you want to do, but just choose something else and see if you like it. Just put yourself in other scenarios. And I think that's the narrative that people need to be encouraged to do a little bit more.
Yeah, it's actually an interesting one. A bit of a segue, but you know how you mentioned there that there was that individual who said just stick with it. I think part of that comes into play is because a lot of times we might not mind something, and the only time we'll actually start to enjoy it is when we actually get good at it. And the only time we get good at it is by devoting enough hours towards it. And that's like kind of juxtaposed with like, well, if you don't like it at all, just drop out and find something else. And I always thought about that because for me, I was studying arts initially.
Yeah.
And I wasn't enjoying it, but I also just from more of like a career perspective, I just didn't see, I wanted to get, it was more of like, I was initially wanting to do arts law, but then I decided I want to do psychology. I fell in love with psychology. You know it. You can hear by the way I speak. I sound like a nerd. I love it though. I really do. But have I loved my entire degree? 100% no. The mundane every day to day.
Yeah.
Watching a lecture when I don't want to, finishing a lab report when I don't want to, trying to spend an extra half an hour figuring out something, a statistical concept, because it makes no sense in my head.
Yeah.
I don't love it, but I love it when it comes together in the big picture.
Exactly.
And the reason is that's such an important thing is because there's a lot of times in this world where we might find that we like something, we start on it, and it doesn't even necessarily just have to be a uni degree. This could be a job, it could be a hobby, and it might start becoming difficult. And that will be where we start questioning, well, if we're not enjoying every second of it, does that mean that we need to go out and find ourselves and find another hobby? And then the danger with that is you're going to end up going down this rabbit hole where nothing ever truly, satisfies you because your mindset has deluded you into believing that everything that you do, if it's truly going to be within your purpose, is going to be always magical, fun, and it's not going to have its hardships. And that's a complete delusional idea, and I think it's a dangerous idea as well. I think that's something that telling 18-year-olds might be quite useful, especially those who want to go out into certain careers, is letting them know that even if you think you love it, two things might happen. You might actually start off enjoying it and you might see a career in it, but there's going to be a point where it gets really difficult and you'll have to push on. And you might question yourself whether you really like it. Or another thing might happen. You might just not like it from the get-go. Because I think there is a clear difference. If you put me into fucking engineering, I wouldn't like it from the get-go. There's nothing about it that I would enjoy. My brain's not wired for that, mathematical things and,
Exactly. Yeah.
So...
Me too, man.
I think that was just something I wanted to kind of highlight.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think I said before, like I'm the one to encourage like dropping something and going and doing something else. But again, we need to keep in mind that it's all within reason. Like everything has to have that balance and moderation. And so, don't be that person that drops everything after like 6 months. And, every time you pick up something new, you instantly drop it. But pick something, give it an actual go first, and then you can make that decision.
Do you know what?
Don't be so jumpy. That's the danger of it. So
I
I
agree.
just want to clarify that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Have you heard like those people? I think there's like a big trend now on social media and TikTok to like talk shit about university degrees and how useless they are and colleges, and they always reference Mark Zuckerberg saying, "Well, he dropped out." Fucking Mark Zuckerberg was up at the 3 a.m. coding Facebook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like these people knew their passions and purposes already. He was also at like Harvard, so it wasn't like he was, an idiot. He knew what he was doing. But I just don't like this trend that we've kind of gone to where you start denigrating universities and like colleges. It's like you got to start somewhere. You should be active and understand that what you are studying and be open to changing it if you find that there's something else more appealing towards you. But that's like the best way you can set yourself up in life. Even if it's the safest and securest route, you can at least mix and match afterwards. You don't have to stay. You can change to another degree. Yes, I know Hex is bloody annoying right now. Tell me about it, but it's true though.
Exactly. And it might not be the course that might give you the passion and the reason as to what you enjoy. It might be the people you're around. You just might meet someone and have like a sick conversation one day and want to do more of that. And then you start to develop that passion and you start to meet someone else through them. And one thing leads to the next. And then you find yourself in an environment where you're like, okay, maybe I actually like working with people. I like having conversations with people. I like talking about self-improvement or whatever it might be. So ultimately the relationships you build might lead you down the course itself, not the actual course of the university. That might not be the one to lead you down the route of what it is you want to do. And now I also want to touch on like the whole thing about passion. When we come to thinking about passions and finding ourselves, I think it's also dangerous to think that like we've always got like an inbuilt passion, you know, and that is the passion that will make us go and find our purpose. Like it's like when you often hear about, I'm going to come back to sport because it's a good example to have. You hear often in sport where someone will say, I just knew from a young age I was always going to be a sports star. I was always going to be that striker for the football team. And I just always knew. I had that inbuilt passion. I don't think that's true. And I think that is a very dangerous myth to portray to people because ultimately not everyone feels that way. And I think you only feel that way because you've probably been influenced by your environment to think that, you know. Maybe you started playing football at a very, very young age and that is all you did and all you spammed for a long period of time. So therefore, that is what you became. That is what you put your, you know, that was the basket that you put your eggs in, and that is how you developed yourself. So coming back to that, that is the whole notion of being influenced by your environment rather than actually having something inbuilt inside of you that you can then put out into the environment. Moral of the story is you're not a Kinder egg. You're not a Kinder surprise. I don't think you're inbuilt with a secret passion or a secret purpose. I think you got to be out in that environment and let that environment help you decide what it is you want to do.
Yeah, well, I like that because oftentimes passions can be honed and developed over time. I think you are right. I think that kid who became a AFL sports star and claimed that they had a passion, it was probably something that they liked when they were younger realistically.
Exactly.
They loved it. They enjoyed it, didn't think too much about it. They were pretty good at it, so they kept playing competitively.
But it wasn't their purpose in life do that.
But they weren't thinking about it.
Yeah, at 5 years old, it wasn't their inbuilt purpose to do that, was it?
No, it wasn't. But even now, athletes, you know, you can ask I'm sure a lot of elite professional athletes will tell you, it's not always fun just being an athlete. There's going to be times in pre-season when you have to run 3-kilometer time trials and you're spewing your guts out because you had too many beers in Bali 3 weeks earlier. You know, it's not going to be...
You were doing a Jack Relish in Ibiza, maybe.
Jack Relish. But it's true, though. I think it comes back to that central idea before, which is passions can be developed. They can be honed in over time. They're not necessarily like... And you become that, I suppose. Yeah. It's not something like you have something ticking inside of you that's guiding you, but it's rather outside world influencing you.
Yeah.
But at the same token, even if you do really like something, there's going to be inconveniences that come with it.
For sure.
And that's just, I think, that's an inevitable reality.
And that's just about resilience and consistency.
Yeah.
Like whether it is about that sporting analogy or whether it is about a uni course, think about the bigger picture. Don't think about that shitty assignment or that shitty unit that you're doing or that shitty training block if it is a sporting period and think, I'm going to drop it. Think about the bigger picture.
The big picture, see how well, you know, what would be the best... I always like to think about like asking yourself, what is the best case scenario? Because oftentimes we can ask ourselves, what's the worst case scenario? But because you know the whole idea, we had David and Ben on from Toolbox Education. They mentioned the whole thing about catastrophizing.
Yeah.
And I've thought about that concept so much because I do it a lot. So I've tried to implement a different sort of exercise, I'll need a bit of bro theory here to give it a name, but you know, it's like speculating, but almost the opposite of catastrophizing. So instead of asking oneself, what is the rabbit hole of doing this thing wrong? What is the rabbit hole of doing this thing right? And that can often help me when I'm doing those mundane tasks I don't want to do. So, for example, if I'm doing a lab report that I hate and it's part of, an assignment that I have to do and I really don't want to get it done, I ask myself, what's the best thing that I can happen? Well, I can put the best amount of effort I can, which means that I won't regret how I'm feeling, meaning that because I left everything out on that bloody desk, I might maximize the chance of getting a better mark, which boosts my self-esteem, which boosts my motivation, and then therefore I start oppositely catastrophizing.
Exactly.
And
that is beautiful. That's so nice, mate. I love that. That's what needs to be taught more.
Yeah, I think it's healthy to do that. I think but usually what you end up finding is it's just dead in the middle. So it's never as bad as they say it's never as bad as you think it is, but it's never as good as you think it is.
Exactly.
But back to finding ourselves.
So what do you think is a take-home message that, people can hear? And what is something that you think that 18-year-old should keep in mind if they are struggling with that whole notion of finding themselves and they're hearing that term being floated around a lot, and they don't know what the hell it means or what it is that they should do for themselves? What do you tell them?
Don't think about it. Like, seriously, it's not worth tying and attaching yourself to the connotation of finding yourself that much. I would try different things. I like to think really practically. So I would try different things that I know I might not like, things that I do know I will like, but at least get a baseline understanding of what my interests are. Because I didn't know what my hobbies were when I was 18, Yeah. I also think embracing failures and challenges will be the best bloody teacher.
Yeah.
Of telling you who you are, because it's going to tell you how much shit you can tolerate, your ability to deal with adversity, how to transcend difficulties, and something
just like what Bradley touched on a couple of weeks ago.
What Bradley touched on specifically, great episode. Please listen to that one. But I remember Joe Rogan once went on this rant, and I remember listening to it, and he said that failing is amazing. Failure is a good thing. Failure in a relationship, failure in an exam, failure in a job. And the failure itself isn't great. That's not what's amazing about it, but it's the potential of your reaction and your response to it that can be great.
Of course.
Because it hardens you. It shows you what you can deal with and tolerate. And there is nothing more dangerous than a human being who is robust against, a lot of failure, because what that means is they're ready to go up and try again. And I think that's why, and even in that breakup episode we spoke about, it's like, you can't live in fear all the time. You need to give it another go. If you want to have success in anything, it's a numbers game.
Yeah.
I think from a mathematical standpoint and a statistical standpoint, it just makes sense. The more you try, the more you are likely to succeed. The more likely you are to tolerate failure, and I like to use the term tolerate because no one fucking likes to fail. You can convince yourself you like it, and you might be a bit kind of, I don't know what the term is, but like someone who loves pain.
Yeah.
But
pain obsessed.
Yeah, I suppose, but it's tolerating it. So failure and challenges will be the best teacher for finding yourself. But I also think people have families, and I'm not saying like if you want to have a family, you have a family, but the reason people use instructing people to have kids and have a family is because of the whole idea of meaningful responsibility. If you want to know who you are, then see how you are, what kind of person you are when you start raising children. And I don't have kids, but from other podcasts I've listened to who preach about the whole thing about becoming a father and everything. Like, I heard Russell Brand say this really interesting thing, which is before you can be a father to someone else, you have to be a father to yourself.
Right.
And I thought, like, very, very profound, number one.
Probably more profound for, I guess, our audience and for us in general as 20-year-olds, because it makes you think about yourself from a third person's lens. And I think that's kind of the notion of what you're talking about, testing yourself once being a father. But, if we're talking about ourselves here, being a father to ourselves, like looking at yourself in that third person and choosing right from wrong, or just choosing something and seeing how you can make it that right decision. Choose that decision and turn it into that right one rather than choosing the right decision. That's something else I like to think about too.
Yeah, and I think it's treating yourself as, as Jordan Peterson would say, it's treating yourself as someone you are responsible for.
Yeah.
Right? treating yourself like your own best friend.
Mm.
And I think that will inevitably help you find yourself. But that's assuming you're attaching yourself to that whole notion.
Yeah.
I think the best thing to know who you are and to get self-awareness is through failure, meaningful responsibility, and trying new things.
Love it,
I think
mate.
that's the simple formula. It's not simple in practice, but simple in theory.
Exactly. And that's all it is. It comes back to simplicity. And that the only thing I would add to that in terms of the whole finding yourself thing is just embrace being a young individual, embrace being a young adult, embrace your environment, and just enjoy meeting new people and doing new things with your life, and forgetting about what it is you are truly inside. Because like we've said, and what we've come to the conclusion is that you don't have something innate within you that is potentially your inbuilt purpose or passion. We believe that that's made from your environment and your experiences. So just enjoy being a raw young adult, going out into the world, not thinking and not stressing about what it is you might become or not become. Just take everything as it comes and enjoy that journey.
Agreed. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. I love it. All right, guys. I think we're going to wrap it up here. If you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to share it with one of your close friends. If you like the show, always feel free to like and subscribe, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.